So talking about our living ability.
Oh wait, that might be me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Morrison, the Chair of the Electoral Area Services Committee today, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the CVRD is on the unceded territories of the Cowichan, Malahat, Subasset, Halalt, Penelakut, Staminas, Liaxin, Paquachin, DT Dot, and Pachi Dot nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. Ms. Ferguson, what do you have for us today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have the approval of the agenda. We have an agenda that needs to be amended as follows. Deletion of item R2, application number DVP 24H03 and SA23H02 for 12421 Rocky Creek Road from the agenda, and that the agenda be approved as amended.
Moved, seconded?
Did we have another item?
No, we don't. All those in favor? Any opposed?
We're pulling it. It's not correct.
Okay, let's try that again. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. I'm just looking at Director McClinton if he's wondering what's going on. Ms. Ferguson, next item.
Thank you, Chair. We have the adoption of the minutes. M1 is Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of September 4th, and the recommendation is that the minutes of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of September 4th, 2024 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Markman. Any discussion on those on these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. We have no business arising from the minutes, and then we have public input period. The public input period is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on the agenda item before the committee considers the item. The public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes where the speaker is welcome to comment on any items on the agenda up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that are or have been subject to a public hearing. Input from the community is valued and appreciated, and we request that input is presented in a friendly and respectful manner. Your cooperation in maintaining a safe and respectful and orderly environment is greatly appreciated.
Now I would like to invite anyone that would like to provide input to the committee on our agenda items today to please come forward if you wish. The microphone is open. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Papadopoulos. My husband and George and I own Keating Farm, and I wanted to just say a few words about item R4, which is about the comprehensive zoning bylaw update that's ongoing. And there was a staff report that was submitted for information for today that we had the opportunity to review. And really, I mean, the comment that I wanted to confer was that, on behalf of the agricultural community, we've been very clear about the fact that we would really like to see a steering committee formed in order to provide a collaborative environment for us to be able to work with CVRD staff on the development of the ag zoning bylaw. And that request was made very clear earlier this year, and we were hoping that that's what we were going to see in this memo that we saw as of Friday. And that's not the recommendation that's being put forward in that update. It's about some, pop-up public meetings, and then there's one meeting with the farmer community, which is really not adequate in our opinion. We really do want to create a situation where we can work collaboratively with CVRD to develop this document. So I would really like the group here today to be able to take that into consideration and possibly provide that feedback to staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like to invite anyone else that would like to provide input to the committee today to please come forward now. Seeing there's no one else, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. We have no delegations today, so on to correspondence. C1 is a grant and aid request, Electoral Area B, Shawnigan Lake, Recouchin Estuary Nature Center. And there's a recommendation before you. Shall I read it? That it be recommended to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area B, Shawnigan Lake, in the amount of $2,500 be approved to the Cowichan Estuary Nature Center to support watershed and conservation education programs for the Cook-Sila watershed.
Turn to the director for the area. Moved, seconded. You could make a comment.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out for the people who live in Area B but consider themselves Area E. This is just a small gesture on Area B's part of trying to create some fairness, and so there's functions that Area E pays into that are mostly Area B functions, and it takes them ages to even drive to our side of the Area B. So it's just a small way to, because in the grant and aid, it's for specific work towards the Cook-Sila River. So anyway, just pointing that out, a small gesture and trying to make things more equitable.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Next item, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. C2 is a grant and aid request, Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam, Glenora, Recouchan Community Land Trust. The recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam, Glenora, in the amount of $1,500 be provided to the Cowichan Community Land Trust to support the river celebration hosted by Cowichan Stewardship Roundtable and Cowichan Tribes.
Turn to the director. Moved, seconded. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. C3, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. C3 is a grant and aid request, Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam, Glenora, Cowichan Estuary Nature Center. The recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that the grant and aid Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam, Glenora, in the amount of $1,500 be provided to the Cowichan Estuary Nature Center to support educational programming for the youth.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. I've got a note on my screen from a Ron McNeil saying no sound. I think you have to turn your sound on. It's our best professional advice. Can someone pop that into the chat, please? And Ms. Ferguson, next item.
Thank you, Chair. C4 is a request from Director Segal to attend the Roberts Rules and Responsible Government's online webinar course in the amount of $529 on February 24th, 2025. The recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that Director Segal be approved to attend the Roberts Rules and Responsible Government's online webinar course in the amount of $529 on February 24th, 2025.
Mr. Chair, Director Wilson, I would love to move that because then I can take some lessons from her as well. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 7 is information items. So IN1 is the number 1 is Electoral Area D, Cowichan Bay Advisory Planning Commission minutes, July 16th, 2024. Number 2 is Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam Glenora Advisory Planning Commission minutes, July 16th, 2024. Number 3, Electoral Area D, Cowichan Bay and Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam Glenora Joint Advisory Planning Commission minutes, July 16th, 2024. Number 4 is Electoral Area I, Yubo Mead Creek Advisory Planning Commission minutes, July 19th, 2024, and they're all for information.
Does anyone have any discussion, questions, thoughts on these items? Director Dickelson.
I just wondered how it worked. It seems a bit cumbersome to have all the minutes for the 1, 2, and 3 are all the same. So I'm just wondering why it is done that way.
Ms. Ferguson.
Our job is to receive the minutes from your planning commissions and provide them to you for information. So those are just what we were provided.
I'm guessing it's procedurally accurate to ensure that the application of our procedure to each and every set of minutes is consistent and follows a normal process. Is there anything further you'd like? Oh, Ms. Chirolf.
Chair, you're correct. So the meeting wasn't convened officially as a joint meeting, and so there had to be separate sets of minutes that were recorded, even though it was held jointly in reality.
Thank you for that clarity. Any other discussion, questions, thoughts on these? Seeing none, Ms. Ferguson, next item, IN2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. IN2 is Electoral Area B, Shawnigan Lake Community Parks Advisory Commission minutes for July 25, 2024, and those are for information.
Any thoughts, discussion, concerns, questions? Seeing none, on to Section 8 reports. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Reports, R1 is a report from the Development Services Division, reapplication number SA24D01 for 1520 Longwood Road, PID 005553369. And the recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that proposed lots 1, 2, and 3 in subdivision application number SA24D01, 1520 Longwood Road, PID 005553369 be exempted from the minimum parcel frontage requirement in accordance with Section 512 of the Local Government Act.
Welcome, Ms. DeBenna.
Thank you, Chair. So this application, before you is a frontage exemption request for a proposed 3-lot subdivision in Electoral Area D. Due to the existing shape of the property, the 3 proposed lots require an exemption from the 10% frontage requirement for Section 512 of the Local Government Act. Staff consider the terrain to be suitable for residential development and the access to be adequate. Therefore, staff are recommending exemption of the 10% requirement. I think I just went really fast for you. There's the recommendation. Thanks.
There we go. Director Abbott,
So move.
is there a seconder? Okay, we've got it moved and seconded. Normally, we pose questions to staff and the applicant, but it kind of looks like maybe we can just call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. I should note that all of the items that are recommended to the board today will go to the board on Wednesday, October the 9th, 2024, unless otherwise noted. Director McClinton, did we miss something with you?
No, just an errant bump of a button. Apologies. No questions.
Fair enough, thank you. Ms. Ferguson, what's the next item?
R2 was pulled, so we have R3 as a report from Development Services Division, re-application number DVP24C02 for 3851 Peach Drive, PID 002091470. And recommendation before you that that it be recommended to the board that development variance permit number DVP24C02 for 3851 Peach Drive, PID 002091470, to reduce the rear parcel line setback for an accessory building be issued.
Might I ask before you start, is this the item that we received some supplemental correspondence?
No, it is not.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Benna.
Thank you, Chair. Amanda summed it up, but this is a development variance permit application to reduce the rear parcel line from 4.5 meters to 1.89 meters for an accessory building. It's a shed. The applicant has stated the setting was chosen so as to reduce impact to the neighboring property owner's view of the ocean. A building permit will be required for the shed. Notices were mailed out to owners and occupants of neighboring properties in accordance with bylaw number 4483. No public correspondence was received aside from the two that were attached to the staff report that supported the application. Next slide, please, I think. Okay, thanks. That's the site plan. So staff have recommended issuance of the variance as it appears minor in nature, does not appear to undermine the intent of the rear parcel line setback regulations, nor negatively impact neighboring properties. And recommendations on the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benna. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
I can't see you yet. Oh, there you are. Yes,
I'm
Director
here.
Wilson.
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation taking as a precedent has been set by Director Abbott on this one. If there's no discussion, it's fairly straightforward, this one.
Wow, okay, you can move that. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. R4 is a report from the Community Planning Division, Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Fall Engagement, and this is for information.
Welcome, Ms. Wright.
Afternoon, excuse me. So I'm here to inform the committee about the planned fall engagement that we started last week. So since we last met here, we've contracted Landmark Consulting to provide engagement and communication support for this fall period. So with their support, we've updated the Plan Your Cowichan website. It went, the updates happened about a week ago. And on that website, we've also advertised on the website through radio news, not through radio ads, but we made the news and through newspaper ads about a farmer's market booth. So what we've done last weekend, and we're doing it again this weekend, is we have a pop-up tent outside our office here, and we're engaging people on the zoning bylaw. So we'll stop and ask people, where they live and try to engage them and actually just inform people that the zoning bylaw project's ongoing and answer any questions they might have. We're also encouraging people, we have a survey live now regarding the general regulations. The survey link is on Plan Your Cowichan. We also passed out handouts, and it's been in the newspaper ads as well with the QR code about this survey. So we're asking you here today, and I was going to send you an email later, requesting that APC members be encouraged to fill it out as well. And directors are able to send that to interested community members. We're also, we've developed a survey regarding the agricultural zones. So since we last met, we were proposing one zone, and then we heard loudly that one might not be enough. So we've split the one zone into two, one for ALR parcels and one for non-ALR parcels that are designated agriculture. This doesn't mean that the zones are set in stone. This is what we are engaging the community on. So we have planned two meetings on November 5th in relation to these zones and the general regulations that are associated with the agricultural zones. The first meeting on November 5th will be for farm status parcel owners only, meaning we are listening to what the board direction was from June, where the direction was to engage farmers. This is our way of engaging farmers. So we have a list that we are able to generate through BC assessment data of farm status parcel owners. There's about 950 or so throughout the entire through the regional district in the electoral areas, I should say, that are going to, the mailouts happening either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, and so they'll be receiving letters directly inviting them to this meeting. The second meeting on November 5th will happen later in the day at the Heritage Hall at the Cowichan Community Center, where it will be the same type of meeting, but the general public and anyone who's not any farmer or farm status parcel owner who wasn't able to attend that morning will hopefully be able to attend that evening. The survey will be going live tomorrow as well for the agricultural zones. The survey is more complex than the general zoning bylaw survey and asks more in-depth questions about what, in terms of the zones and the regulations that have been proposed. So those will be posted online and as well on Plan Your Cowichan as of tomorrow, where we'll post the draft zones, the general regulations, and the link to the survey to see how the zones may or may not impact a person who has either agricultural land or is interested in agricultural land. So then on our last meeting, both surveys, I should mention, are open until November 8th. So as I said, one's live right now and the other one will be live tomorrow. Both open till November 8th. And then on the final EASC meeting of the year on December 4th, Lanark Consulting will be presenting a summary of the public engagement findings from all these events. So we'll have them here to talk about the survey results, as well as they will be helping to moderate the events on November 8th for the agricultural community, and we'll be discussing what came about from there at that time. And that's what I have for you for the fall.
What was the date of the last segment that you were just talking about where they will be reporting back?
That is December 4th.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff, Director Acton?
Well, more like a comment. I just thought that was great, all your examples and how you, your pop-ups and the just asking people where do you live and really trying to engage people like that. So I think that's really great. Well done. And as far as we had public input period and then hearing everything that's being done, I think staff heard what we asked for and have gone above and beyond, and it sounds great. Like I do not believe we need to add any more engagement than that. We can always, I feel like there's already been a bit of a delay because of the agricultural component, that we've added a lot through it already. So I'm happy with that, and I look forward to us moving forward. Thanks.
Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was admitted slightly late here, and I came in at the very end of the resident who was included in public input. However, I think I recognized the lady as being one of the attendees at UBCM at one of the small symposiums that I went to on the self-sufficiency and the importance of the farming community on the island. And the point I think she made, I came in on the end of it, was that, and I totally agree with this, the inclusion, huge inclusion of the farming community into any committee that is formed is absolutely essential. That point was made over and over again at that small symposium that I attended. And there were a lot of farmers there who said they weren't being included. And I think that was the point that the resident was trying to make just now. So, Ms. Wright, thank you for everything that you've done. But is there any way that we can make sure that the community, the farming community, as represented by the resident who spoke just now, are more included in any discussions as we go forward, so that we can look at self-sustaining farming here on the island?
Ms. Wright.
Through the chair to the director. So I think that's really what we're trying to do with this farm status parcel owner. There's no other way really that we kind of threw some ideas around, but farm status is a proven, is a way, and almost the only way for a farmer to show that they're farming on the land. You have to prove through many different means of how you are farming in order to get this tax deduction. Through the letter is going specifically to the addresses. So, and we're encouraging people also, if someone leases your land and you're not actively farming it, to perhaps extend that invitation to that person who's farming your land. There's sometimes people who are retired farmers or who just own farmland who lease it out to others. So we're trying very hard to have that conversation. And we do hope that this meeting on November 5th, with farm status parcel owners or leasees only, really bridges that gap, and we hold the conversations at the tables, but also that we're encouraging people also to fill out or to not fill out, or no, I shouldn't say that. We're encouraging people to review the survey as well, because the survey will lead the booklet that we're working towards to work, we're going to set people up in tables, and by no means is this completely 100% thought out at the moment to the nth degree, but we are encouraging small group discussions with this workbook. So, and the workbook is based on the questions. So the public, the general public, will be asked the same types of questions, but the farmers we're expecting to have a more in-depth discussion. So questions will talk about, here's the draft zones. Does it meet your need in X, Y, Z? Do you see all the uses that we're planning to permit? Are those reflected in this zone? For instance, we've talked about setbacks at this meeting. We've talked about cannabis was a good example when we were doing the general regulations for cannabis that are in all the zoning bylaws now, cannabis production facilities, where the setbacks for a cannabis production facility that's in the ALR is lower if you're adjacent to ALR parcels. Well, we're trying to propose one step further, saying if you're adjacent, regardless if you're in the ALR or not, but you're designated and zoned agriculture as per the MOCP, that your setbacks for farm buildings are less. So it doesn't matter if your neighbor's in the ALR. We're saying, hopefully, if you're agriculture and agriculture side by side, your setbacks are less. We're really trying to address it, and we hope that those conversations happen at that farm status parcel owner meeting only, which is why we are only sending out, we're not advertising that meeting, the details online. The details will be in the letter that's sent to people, as
Good,
well as
thank
the
you.
link.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I could have a follow-up, please. And I think I was more interested in the larger parcel farmers, if you like, and this might not be the right term, the career farmers, the people who do it they've done it for years, their families have always done it, the dairy farmers, etc. Those are the people that I hope will be more included. By all means, include the small persons. One of the things that was heard at that symposium, said with a certain amount of disbelief, or heard with a certain amount of disbelief, that really only took 5 chickens to get farm status or to retain farm status. So it's one of the things, the bigger farmers that I'm more interested in, the people who have been there for years and years and years with their families. Thank you.
Director Segal.
Thank you. So I just noticed towards the end of the report that there will be additional engagement planned for 2025. So does that mean that this engagement is to inform the draft, and then once that draft is together, there'll be another round of looking for feedback? And for that round in 2025, will it go to the APCs, the Accessibility Committee, and the farming community again?
Ms. Wright?
Through the chair to the director, yes, that's exactly what we're planning. So through this process, agriculture, the zones itself were never intended to really be piecemealed, but it has worked out that way, which is fine. However, when we do come back, we are going to come back with a draft bylaw with all the types of zones and a proposal on how to consult with all the zones. Meaning we'll have engagement activities with, that are larger. If you think of how when the HOCP, the harmonized OCP, was kind of brought out in 2020, right before COVID, in bigger halls with conversations happening, that's really what we're envisioning at some point through there. But yes, so APCs, absolutely, they're definitely on the list, and other associated committees as well. And yes, we are planning on a consultation for the bylaw, the bylaw widely and as a whole.
Director McClinton?
Thank you, Chair. A question through the staff. Going to take a bit of an unusual route. And just make a comment first, and then my question, I think it'll make sense. I know prior to being elected, I had many issues in my area that I wanted to get to work on, and after being elected and really starting to learn the ins and outs of the Local Government Act and the different rules and regulations, like sort of the constraints that are placed on us. So I just want to ask the question for the member of the audience to post about the steering committee. Why is that not a route?
Director McClinton, we're addressing the staff report on, you can have that conversation offline at any time if you like.
I can't ask why a steering committee, why we're going with these pop-ups instead of steering committee. That's not. If I'm not.
I think staff have explained what the rationale for their within their staff report, and it seems to me they are coming back to us on December the 4th with a general wrap-up and analysis of the input, and we've just heard that they are planning to come to us again in 2025 with further information. So addressing what's in the staff report as opposed to public input would be appropriate and in order.
Fair enough. Thank you, Chair.
Director Martman.
Thanks. I think the big thing for me is about having a voice, and I appreciate this work that you're doing because I think you're really trying to get out there and do that. Where I'm not sure the voice is going to be heard, though, is even particularly from the north. And how does farmers up in my area, they'll get a mail out and they may hear about this, but they certainly aren't coming down to the Duncan market. Well, a few maybe for some produce that they'll bring, but most we go north. And so the pop-up or the thing within the market is I think very central to the CVRD and not. So that's just one comment about how do we help engage the north. And I think one of the things that I think about is the ability to have focus groups. And is that something that you see in this, or is really that's not something you're going to do?
Ms. Wright.
Could I just clarify, do you mean for agricultural zoning or do you mean for the zoning bylaw as a whole?
Actually, both.
Focus groups, we did think about it. The thing is the direction of the board was to engage the farming community, and this is how we, when we think back to June, we think, oh, there's plenty of time, but when we go through deadlines and stuff like that, and that's why, there's such a tight closing date for the surveys, is that we need time to analyze and make the report deadlines to meet the last meeting of the year, things like that. I feel that through the MOCP process and then through the local area plan process, which is ongoing as well, that informs how we regulate on the ground. That's what that policy is intended to do. And I do feel that that has been and is still being worked on. And I think something that I've talked about too through this comprehensive zoning bylaw process is that it will be ever changing, and a zoning bylaw is not supposed to be a static document. It's supposed to be something that changes with what the community needs. And since the local area plans are not being proposed to be adopted at the same time as the modernized official community plan, there is time after or not time, but we do have the ability after to say, hey, this is what came out that needs to be tweaked in the zoning bylaw to meet the policies of the local area plan that was just adopted. And that is going to happen. So in terms of specifically addressing the question about focus groups, in 2025, we haven't, we're still thinking about how to exactly engage on the zoning bylaw then. But focus groups, it's very difficult to determine who is on them and how to make it fair and things like that. For instance, we did talk about it for agricultural zoning as well, but there is one area with no ALR land. So if we are choosing a few people from each area, is it fair that one area is speaking? And we just came up with those kinds of questions, and that's where this meeting came from. And I understand that people from the north or people from all over that have farm status may not be able to attend the farmers market or the meeting only, farm status owners meeting only. However, that's why we do have the night meeting as well. That will be very similar, but the level of conversation won't be as specific to agricultural community, but the survey is very open-ended in parts too. We are reading the survey, not that we have the results yet, but that's the entire point of it is to really take into consideration what's said there and see what we can do with it for regulations on the ground. And sorry if I just might want to say this one thing about the survey, is that, it's only been open for about a week and we already have over 200 people that have replied to it. A lot of those happened after the farmer's market, which was great. It showed that it was really working, but we do hope that people engage through the survey. And I mean the general survey, the agricultural survey hasn't opened yet. Thank you.
Follow up?
Yes, and thank you. And I know this is what you guys do for a living. You are the professionals at this, and appreciate that. And time frames really do come into play. I think the thing that I'm just trying to wrestle with is I think there's parallel things going on, and trying to understand how one could help inform the other. And certainly, where are we at with the Agriculture Advisory Committee, agricultural plan, and is that something that will ever get done in time to help inform this, perhaps, in some ways? Or does we wait?
Ms. Terrell.
Good afternoon. So the question from Director Martman regarding the Agricultural Committee and plan that was discussed at Committee of the Whole, and it was referred until completion of the Economic Development Strategy and conversations around regional planning. I wanted to say that, just to supplement what Lauren has said already, is that we take a very sort of long view and a broad view when it comes to planning for engagement with communities on, and in this case, we're not focused solely on agriculture, but on the breadth of issues that'll come into play into the zoning bylaw. And so we have to kind of think about how we're going to manage that given the time constraints that we have. So I think my suggestion would be to let the process unfold this fall, get that report in December, and then evaluate, right? The quality of the information that you're getting and whether or not you feel that that's representative. If it is, then great. If we need to do more, we can do more. We can adapt, right? We'll push it into 2025, and that's why we're a little bit like, we're not quite sure what we're going to do in 2025 because we want to see how things go. So there's room. The other thing I wanted to say is that point about your APCs, did a super job. Hopefully we haven't burned them out too much through the development of the OCP and the local area plans, but they're a great sounding board for us. And so to the extent that you can get representatives from your agricultural community onto your advisory planning commissions, there's an opportunity for them to provide a voice through that committee structure as well. Yeah, thanks.
Director Nicholson.
Thanks. And I appreciate Ms. Cheryl's comments about being adaptable. And I have tried to get farmers on my APC. It's pretty darn hard. I share, I think, Director Martman's concern about making sure the agricultural community feels heard. Agriculture is a huge part of Area E. We have a lot of ALR. And farming is really important for the future, for food security, and for economic development. It's a big business in the valley. So it's really important that we pay attention to what the farmers have to say. And I guess I appreciate that you're taking this approach, and it's you've got a tough task ahead of you. What I think, for people to feel heard, though, it has to be transparent what information they provide at these meetings, how it's used. So I'm not quite clear. I often know that we have meetings, people give input, and it goes into something, and it gets churned out as something else. And I think that's where we need to make sure that it's really clear what we heard at the meetings and how it's being transformed into regulation or draft regulations. So is that possible? I know it adds more work to do that, but it seems to me that it would be really useful at this point.
Ms. Wright?
So through to the director, yes. So that's exactly what our intent is. Our intent is that was the entire purpose of the draft zone. So we have something to start the conversation on. And so what we intend to bring back once changes are made based on public input received is showing, we will say, there'll be a table of the draft zone saying, you know, we're changing this from this because of this reason. That's exactly what that's exactly what we're planning.
Follow up?
Ben, so I guess what I was really trying to get at is whose input has been used to make the changes? So within the farming community, there's a fair amount of diversity, and so there's that. But then there's also this broader community who has an interest in farming and will be providing input. And so how you weight the different kinds of input, I think will be important to be transparent about that.
Ms. Wright?
And that's a fair comment, and I don't think it will be, I don't think it's as black and white as weighting it. I do feel, though, that once the engagement, just like the OCP, we're not going to go, we will be posting all the feedback. We won't be posting names of anyone who filled out a survey, but the survey feedback, if someone wrote a comment, that will be summarized in a or not summarized, they will be compiled in a document, and you'll be able to see each comment specifically. We'll also, you know, do the summary of what the findings were from, you know, yes, no, maybe questions as well. But we are going to be very transparent on what we hear, and that's as much as, we're really trying to be as transparent in this process as possible. We are trying to follow in the footsteps of how the MOCP has laid out their process, and that's why I keep saying we are going to read every word that is received, and at that point, we need to take the policies that are found within the MOCP, and which is intended to be, you know, the MOCP that's adopted at the time, and, you know, develop the regulations to meet those policies that align with the comments that we receive back in terms of the zones and the applicable general regulations that are associated with them.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. So this is an information item. I just want to comment from something that I heard this morning, and as we all acknowledge the vital importance of agriculture, and we want to make sure we get it right. I just want to note that from this morning, a question was posed about the timing and the completion of these exercises that we've been engaged in, the HOCP, the MOCP, and the accompanying zoning bylaw. And I think that it was well done for directors to raise the agricultural sector when they did earlier in the year. And it sounds to me that staff have responded and have put forward this engagement exercise for us to hear the information from the community. I look forward to the analysis done by and presented to us on December the 4th, and it sounds like staff are prepared to respond appropriately and to bring that information to us. So I just want to ensure that we do keep our eye on the fact that we do want to get to completion on the work that's been done, so that we can provide some certainty to the community that the document has been done, but done well. So with that, we will conclude this item and go to R5. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. R5 is a report from the Recycling and Waste Management Division, options for bear-resistant garbage totes and approval of 2025 budget for tote distribution. The recommendation is that it be recommended to the board on October 9, 2024. 1, that bear-resistant garbage totes be provided to households that do not already have a CVRD garbage tote. 2, that households with existing curbside garbage totes be replaced with bear-resistant totes. And that 3, that $568,672 be pre-approved from Function 515 2025 budget to support curbside delivery and household distribution in the spring of 2025.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'll provide a quick overview of the report for everybody. So we bring this report to you for two reasons. The first is to seek direction from the board on which of the three proposed options for providing bear-resistant garbage totes should be implemented for the three-stream service, and second, for the budget pre-approval. The three-stream rollout will distribute organics totes to an estimated 14,500 households in all 9 electoral areas, and upwards of 8,900 garbage totes to households in areas A, B, C, and H. We recently selected the Re-Rig Pacific Company to supply totes for the service and to distribute these totes to each household for the service rollout. The totes will be purchased from the short-term borrowing loan of $5.56 million approved by the board on June 28th of last year. This amount was based on the cost to provide bear-resistant totes for both organics collection and for garbage. Just a note, we will provide bear-resistant organics totes to each household. The purchase cost of these will be reduced by approximately 45% using the remaining $1.4 million remaining from the $1.68 million Clean BC grant for organics infrastructure development. So it follows that purchasing bear totes would utilize basically all of the short-term borrowing loan. Thus, the utility fees for the program would be at the higher range of fees communicated last year, the range of which was $290 to $345. You'll see in the report there's a specific number there. It's sort of an estimate, but such is the range. In consideration of cost containment, this report discusses 2 lower cost options for providing garbage bear totes and compares them to providing all residents with garbage bear totes. So all garbage bear totes is option 1. Around 8,900 bear totes would be distributed to all new garbage customers across the region, and all existing garbage totes in service currently would be replaced over time. This option would provide the singular best means of preventing bears from accessing waste attractants in the garbage stream, such as improperly separated food waste, human hygiene products, and pet waste. It would best align with our solid waste management plan goals, industry best practices, and is also preferred, and the use of bear-resistant totes is also preferred by the province, Conservation Officer Service, and conservation agencies. It also addresses concerns raised by the public during the public consultation phase of the 3-stream program development about human-bear conflicts. It is the most expensive option to deploy, and replacing all existing garbage totes would cost an additional $1.4 million, which equates to a utility fee increase of about $3.50 per household per year over 10 years, and this number is reflected in the utility fee that is stated in the report. Option 2 would deploy garbage bear totes to approximately 3,200 households in the Shawnigan Lake area, and all other households that would be receiving bear totes during rollout would receive regular garbage totes. About 1,400 households in the vicinity of Lake Cowichan would have their garbage totes replaced with bear totes over the period of 2 to 3 years following rollout. This option is less expensive than option one and still provides an additional level of waste attractant management. However, this option would be administratively onerous to implement, and subject to a number of likely hidden costs, such as providing bear totes to areas that see an influx of bears, or if we identify future hotspots. Also, utility fees for regular garbage totes would be the same as for bear totes, so it represents a visible level of service inequality. Option 3 would be to provide all new households with regular garbage totes, and bear totes would be available for a fee, which is expressed in the report of $160 for the small tote and $170 for the 240-liter tote. While this is the least expensive option and it would eliminate any fees, it does not provide any additional barriers for wildlife to access waste attractants, and so ensures that bear-human conflicts and thus bear conflict kills will continue because of it. Also, garbage bear totes would only be used by those willing and able to pay the significant upfront fee. Lastly, this option would make it very costly for the region to pivot towards the use of bear-resistant garbage carts in the future. And finally, staff seeks approval of the budget to fund the delivery and household distribution of curbside totes for the rollout. Pre-approval of this budget is required to award the tote supply contract to RERIG and would allow them to begin the lengthy tote manufacturing process and for the complex planning of the household delivery of collection totes. The inability to award the PO now will delay the service rollout. Also, the Clean BC grant funding is only available to the end of March of 2025. So organics totes received after that deadline would not be eligible for that offset, which would result in significantly higher user fees. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I've got a list of speakers. I've got Director Martman, Director Acton, and Director Nicholson. Director Martman, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I thought great to have those options listed out there. And maybe you spoke to this, but I just wanted some clarity. So if you went with option 1 in the bear totes, is that a one-time cost for 2025?
Sorry, through the chair. Which cost are you referring to?
So you say it's $330, and that would include a cost. Is that so? What would it be for 2026?
There would likely. I mean, I can't exactly speak to the annual increases in cost, though we have sort of costed out what it would like. Those utility fees are based on sort of current costs. And the cost of totes are basically portioned out over 5 years for the borrowing, so that includes borrowing costs in there as well. So it is subject to short-term borrowing, to fluctuations in interest rates. So it will likely move based on those, but the actual cost to pay those carts off will be stable over that time period.
So it's likely to be a $22 increase over every year going forward.
$22?
Well, it's between 308 and 330.
Oh,
It's
no.
$22.
It would likely be the actual, the impact of utility fees based on the carts will be very, very stable. So the fluctuation in utility fees might come from other things like increased staffing and those considerations.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying to understand if I have to explain this to my residents and say, hey, it's $330 this year, but that tote's now paid for, and in the future it's just going to be
the totes will be paid off over the course of 5 years.
Over 5 years.
Yeah, it will be stable.
So $22 over 5 years. Okay. Yeah. So I took a moment to talk to the regional district of Nanaimo, my area next to me, and they go with option 3 right now, I believe.
Yes.
And I asked her how that's working out, because that's the option where you can increase, and she said, no problem, no one's ever brought it up to her as a concern. So, and we're very rural, so, it's in our area. So I guess I'm looking and saying, why not option 3? I'm also concerned because we've got phase 3 of recreational, regional recreation coming in. We have all kinds of budget things coming up. So I'd be interested to see someone convince me differently. Thank you.
Director Acton.
Well, I believe we should in some way have bear totes, whether we do it all or just parts. We've up until now made some decisions based on the thought that we would have bear totes, and that we were trying to make decisions based on repelling the bears. So now, since the dollar amount is in front of us, to suddenly not take the bears into consideration, I don't. But my question is, since we're ordering, I think, 9,000 totes, are we able to print on top of them, maybe in addition, I believe you're not actually supposed to put your garbage out until the morning anyway. So that's a rule. So some of the bylaws around that govern the bin would be interesting if we could get it printed, since we're getting them manufactured, made, and then that would be my question, so that we could help educate the public instead of just a sticker, but a really well printed tote.
Through the chair, there's any amount of information we could put on there. I think the bolder the better in terms of that. So I thank you for your suggestion, and that is something we could definitely put on there.
Thank you, through you. I also want to add that there's a cost for every hot stamp that we add to the tote as well. So we have to be careful how much we ask them to add on to the totes. And I don't know what the hot stamp cost is right now per item, but yeah, something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Director Nicholson?
Sorry, I forgot I'd already put my hand up. I'm wondering where the hotspots are in the electoral areas for bears, and whether we could just target those areas.
Go ahead.
To the board, or to the chair. So the hotspots are, so this is where some of the challenges lie. So we know from the information provided by the Conservation Officer Service, they give things labels, but I talked with Sergeant Norris, and he said that it is very challenging to determine where exactly these things are. They go under specific codes when somebody's reporting from a certain area, but the main hotspots are Shawnigan Lake, Lake Cowichan, Cobble Hill sees bad years, and then there have been a number of bears euthanized in Ladysmith, and then in the north end of Duncan, sort of like North Cowichan. Those are the major hotspots. So anywhere you sort of have semi-urban development running up to bear habitat, which is like typically like mountainous and forested, is where you see the most number of conflicts.
So pretty much everywhere except the real rural, real urbanized parts of the electoral areas.
Yeah. Director Wilson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Director Nicholson has touched on this as far as talking about hotspots, but do we have any figures at all for bear and human garbage conflict? Is there any data on this kind of thing? How many per year are we getting, let's say, throughout the CVRD?
Do you have those numbers?
Through the chair, yes. So we don't have exact numbers for the CVRD. We can sort of extrapolate based on provincial data. So from the period of 2014 to 2018, data published by the Conservation Service reported that about 65% of all calls made to the Conservation Officer was due to bears getting into garbage. So in a total of about 35,000 calls, 21,000 of those calls were because of garbage. And there are a number of unknowns as well, which are likely attributed to garbage. Looking at provincial data, we can sort of see, based on the numbers of bears euthanized, the numbers of calls that would likely be placed all around BC. So it not necessarily pertaining to our region, but it looks like for every 170 calls, a bear is euthanized. So if we have 10 bears euthanized in the region in a year, and there have been years where it's been up to 25, it's hundreds or thousands of calls. So pretty substantial problem.
Do you have a follow-up?
I do, if that's okay there. And I'm all for protecting the bears, but Director Acton has also touched on the same thing of education here. We don't put our garbage out until we have to. That's the next morning. That's one of the things that has to be said to the people over and over again. But I think what Director Martman has said as well, I think it should be an option. If an option 3 is what I'm going towards here. If you are diligent about putting your stuff out, and Cobble Hill, it seems to be a hot spot, then go and buy a bear. Don't buy one. I'm tempted toward option 3 to keep the cost down for our people. Thank you.
If I can respond. So yes, the bear set out, or the set out of waste carts is certainly some place where it's visible. You see where a bear has gone into somebody's garbage. However, this doesn't address the main issue of garbage being stored improperly on every day that is not a collection day. So many areas don't have access to indoor storage, or they simply don't use it. And no amount of education is going to free up space in a garage or build one. So this is the option preferred by the Conservation Officer Service, because you'll only have so much uptake, and there's only so much people only have such an ability to do this. So incurring voluntary extra costs might be very challenging. So thank you.
Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Tanner. That's a good report. A couple of things, and it was just discussed. Not having my garbage out this morning meant not having it out on the road, but it was really darn close. And when it's not darn close to the road, it's right behind my barn. And save once, we have not had any altercations with the bear, and it was my fault that what we put in the garbage was ripe for the picking. And I'm like others, I think option 3, and do a better job as a homeowner to keep bears away from my bins. But should we go through a big recycling program or changing out program, what happens to all the current bins? Is there value in selling those off?
Through the chair, so in my rather limited experience, there may be, so no, you cannot sell them off typically. You may be able to give them away to another group of people. So say, for instance, a First Nation might be interested in taking them, so long as you don't have a conflict with having our branding on them. But apart from that, the carp producers usually have a recycling program, and you would have to meet some sort of minimum quantity, and then they would facilitate the recycling, and it's at no extra cost.
I have Director McClinton, then myself, then we'll go to round 2.
Thank you, Chair. It's been great to hear my fellow director's opinion. I'm leaning towards option 3 as well. Perhaps question through the staff. You know, I live in Area G, right between North Cowichan, which is the north end of Duncan, and Ladysmith. And on garbage day, recycling day, whatever we want to call it, I noticed their totes are very different than ours. They're not very secure, it would seem to me. They're smaller. They often look just like a typical kind of garbage can. Any sort of, you know, with any sort of acknowledgement or insights into their totes compared to the ones we're currently using at the CBRD, which seem to me to be fairly skookum. That's my question. Thank you.
Through the chair, yes, we have a bit of information about North Cowichan. So they have purchased their totes from a company called IPL, and their totes are they're your typical curbside tote, not terribly robust through our testing, we've noticed. However, they are very inexpensive, and North Cowichan will be, from the news report that I read, offering sort of like the equivalent of option 3, like an option to purchase a bear tote. Yeah, so that's what they'll be going with. So they're not secure. They're like they're typical organics and garbage carts, neither of which are secure against wildlife.
Follow up if I may, Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if we get a maybe I'm missing something here. If we go with option 3, we'll be adding a 3rd organics tote. Is that correct?
Sorry, option 3, the organics totes, that's sort of already settled business. We are purchasing the bear organics totes as sort of the way to make the biggest splash for wildlife protection. So those will be the same. Those are the same for every option. It's just the garbage totes that will differ from each option.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director McClinton. So I'm next up on the list, and you know, I really appreciate staff's diligence in this, and I can tell you that being here when the curbside service first came in-house, we had an option for an additional top-up to get a bear-proof garbage bin. There was add-ons, you could order them. I believe at the time it was $35, and I ordered one for my garbage tote, and And I can tell you barely a week goes by where I have neighbors walking past on the garbage day and wondering where I got that skookum set up for the garbage bin because it's an issue. So, when I look at what we've talked about, and I know that there's an active group in the Cowichan Lake area that are trying to reduce human-bear interactions because there are such negative outcomes when they get habituated to food sources such as garbage. I'm really quite surprised that the committee is looking at anything less than doing what we could do to ensure that we reduce these conflicts. I know it's more than just the garbage day issue. There are folks that they can't store their bins inside a locked area. I've heard of stories of people actually storing their garbage inside of locked areas and the bears getting inside the locked area to get at the garbage. So, I look at this and think that if there was one thing that we should have done when we first began this service, and that was to make sure that every resident receive a locking bear-proof bin, that's probably the biggest disappointment with the takeover. It's been very well received. People have been very happy with the service, but there's bears being put down on a fairly regular basis. And I can tell you, just in the back alley out behind my place, there's a trail up into the woods of where you could just walk straight up the end of the back alley, and it's just strewn with garbage and plastic bags from the bears doing their regular run down into the back alley, getting into the garbage bins that aren't locked, and dragging the bags up into the bush to eat the garbage up there. So I couldn't in good conscience support anything that wasn't the fullest means we can to protect bears. We're the problem, not the bears. And if we can make a reasonable approach with what I think is the recommended resolution, we're doing the right thing that we can for not just us, but the bears as well. So I wouldn't be supporting option 3, I'd be supporting option 1. And now we'll go to round 2, and I've got Director Acton.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that we're suddenly trying to cut back on this part of it. I feel like it's completely irresponsible of us to not provide a service that's going to be adequate for essentially all our communities have bears. And we're bringing people in who actually never had garbage service before. They would bring it in. So now we're saying, okay, now we want you to do it. They'll do it, and then the bears are going to get in it. CVRD is going to be aware all of this, and then it becomes a huge education program. So what, we should hire $100, like maybe someone for $100,000 a year to go around educating people on this? We need to just start off properly. And even stamping the totes in my previous life, you would, for a hot press, would be like $1 each one, or whatever it is. It's still going to be less than hiring somebody to fix things after the fact. So I think we have to provide the right equipment, and we live in a very rural place. Where we live is so rural that we even contemplated not having garbage to begin with. So that's enough to tell you that we definitely need bear-proof bins, and I hope that we go with the staff recommendation to do this properly, and at least after 5 years, everyone has a proper bin so that we can work with conservation, which costs us all more money in the end. And as Director Morrison pointed out, you end up with more garbage in the woods, and it just multiplies. So I hope that we will do the right thing, or I totally believe it's the right thing by having the bear totes. Thank you.
We'll go back to round 1 with Director Deck and then to Director Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the 3 options and seeing that, say, going from the 3rd upwards, The third has, option 3 has too many drawbacks and it doesn't address bear-human conflict. Option 2 has, staff implications and timing implications. So that really leaves, in my mind, the best possible option, which is option 1. So that's what I'll be voting for.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I think we need to be responsible about bears. I just wish we could do it a little bit in a little bit more targeted way, because the fact that you only have that they're only guaranteed for 3 years versus 10 seems to me to be a pretty significant cost factor. But what I was wondering is, once we've taken the organics out of the garbage, how much of a problem will the garbage cans be for bears? Do you have any other regional districts that can provide that kind of feedback?
Yeah, so I can, there are, as far as I know, no comparables to this level of protection. So if we're going to be using the regional district of Nanaimo, so they have locking organics totes, but they're not bear totes. So bears can get into them. A very determined person could get into them if they wanted. But presumably they do prevent something from, like, they will prevent a barrier. They, within their region, have a higher, like I said, this is all very variable. So they still have a higher number of bear deaths than we do. But a lot of that is to do with geography and population density. It's also sort of an unprecedented time right now. The last few years, we've seen record high bear deaths across the province, and a lot of it is to do with the disruption of their food systems. So you'll see in Prince George, they have hundreds of bear deaths, and they have a much lower bear population density. So that puts their number of bears killed per 100,000 population at like 400. And we're population-wide much lower, but then in those target areas, we can be up to 12 to 20 in Shawnigan Lake. So there are still areas where it is, very important to have those things. But in terms of like a one-to-one comparison, it just does not exist. This is, this direction that people are taking now, this is gaining a lot more traction with the province. The Alberni Clayoquot Regional District rolled out their 3-stream system to a number of their electoral areas, and they have done all bear-proof carts as well. We just don't have any data from that, but we know from just utilizing these things, this is the only way to like meaningfully present the to meaningfully prevent bears from accessing. This is something they're going to be implementing in Prince George. They're implementing it in Kamloops now. They have it in Squamish. They have it in bits and pieces everywhere, and they just so. Most people have had 3-stream systems automated with carts. We have the opportunity to make a big splash right now because we don't have a 3-stream system yet. So, thank you.
I've got Director McClinton to close, and I'll go to Director Segal after. Can't hear you.
Thank you, Chair. Just again, one more time, so for my own clarity, I'm a little mixed up. The organic totes that are going to be rolled out, unintended, they are bear-proof locking totes, correct? So we're talking about making the garbage cans bear-proof, which hypothetically should not have any organics in them. We know some will, so not everybody follows the rules. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep. Director Segal.
Can I quickly provide a comment? Not all waste attractants are food waste. Things like diapers and pet waste are major pet attractants. Thank you.
Director Segal.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation.
We have a seconder. Do we have any discussion? Director Segal.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the discussion around the table. Like Director Nicholson, wonder once the organics are removed, maybe that would make it better. But then, I know there's diapers, pet waste, non-biodegradable menstrual products. I think there's lots of other things that could be in garbage. And I know from my own experience, I don't have a place where I can store my garbage inside. So I have bear resistant garbage cans. And because I don't have garbage service, I let it build up. And usually when we go away from vacation, it all gets torn apart. And I really take note of the number of calls that are reported, basically on, like, I'm just one example of that, right? But there's a lot of people that live out in remote areas that this is happening to as well. And I think it's really important to listen to the information coming from conservation officers that are doing the research on how to allow us to live better alongside the wildlife that we are amongst. So I'll be supporting this. Thanks.
Director Martman.
Is there a con mic? So, you know, I think option 3 doesn't disregard the concept of bear protection. Concept 3, or option 3, is about saying some of this needs to be taken on by the residents. And I think that's the piece that I think also you can almost make an argument that over 5 years is probably almost the same cost to that person. Because if it's $22 a year, over 5 years, it's $110 versus $160 to go ahead and buy one. I'll probably do, I think what Director Morrison said, they upscaled theirs when it came out. I would probably upscale mine. You know, it just, if that option's available. But what we're doing is saying to everybody, we know best, and we're going to provide this all to all of you. And I don't know if it's the reasonable or unreasonable approach, as Director Acton said, but for me, again, this is part of a larger context of how much can we spend and how much should we be spending? Because I hear, not from the conservation officers, but I hear from my community about how do we keep things reasonable for them for their overall taxes from the CBRD. And that is a piece that I hear as clearly as I hear the conservation officer numbers. I hear it clearly from my residents, and that's why I would say option 3 would be where I stay with. Thank you.
Well, I granted you a whole bunch of leeway on that because option 3 wasn't on the table. So seeing no further hands, Director Wilson, to close.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You heard my warning to Director Martman about speaking other than to what's on the floor, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I won't be supporting option 1 purely for some of the reasons that Director Martman was not supposed to speak about. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Do we need the resolution read? Doesn't look like it. Everybody ready? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Got a couple opposed, but that motion carries. Director Nicholson.
I just have a burning question before we get off this topic. So if they're locked, how does the tip cart, how do they get tipped into the...
They'll do a demo after. Which happens to be the next item. No, just kidding. Can I indulge everyone? This is sort of housekeeping, the next one. It's just they need to do, so can we do R6, please?
Thank you, Chair. R6 is a report from the Recycling and Waste Management Division, REIT curbside collection, function 515, short-term borrowing clarification. Recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that the purchase of a $370,000 haul-all truck for the 3-stream curbside collection of glass be included in the short-term borrowing approved by the board on June 28, 2023.
Ms. Surity, do you have something for us?
Thank you. This is simply a correction of an error, so housekeeping item. The cost for this the truck has been considered in the loan amount that we asked for in 2023. So we just need to make a correction to the motion so we can go ahead and order this truck as soon as possible for the glass collection.
Thank you. Do we have a mover? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Director Acton?
Is it necessary? Oh, I guess we can't even talk about the, never mind. I'm good.
Seeing no hands on screen, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? One opposed, the motion carries. Where does that take us to? Oh, yes, Mr. Moody.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring to your attention the previous memo. Did have two recommendations, and I just wanted to double check that. I think perhaps the board needed, or the committee needed to address both of them separately. The second recommendation was on the pre-budget approval for the delivery of household distribution of the curbside totes. And so there was really two, from what I understand, two separate, but were they all together? Okay, I just wanted to double check that. Thank you.
You did read them all? I did read them. I thought so. Okay. Next item. Next item, no unfinished business. Does that take us to question period?
Takes us to question period.
This is where oh no, you have to read that.
Thought I was off. The question period is an opportunity to offer the public to ask a question regarding the business of the CVRD. The question period allows for an allotment of 15 minutes and is comprised of two parts. The first is reserved for questions directly related to agenda items. If there is time remaining, questions may be on a matter of public interest related to and in the CVRD jurisdiction. Each questioner is permitted to ask one question plus one follow-up question related to the answer. The question must truly be a question and not a statement of opinion or speech. We request that your question is presented in a friendly and respectful manner. Your cooperation in maintaining a safe, respectful, and orderly environment is greatly appreciated.
Would anyone like to pose a question to the chair on today's agenda? Well, why thank you. It has been a long day so far. Ms. Ferguson, what's next?
Sorry.
Do we have a closed session today?
We don't have a closed session. Can I just take one moment?
Take one moment.
Sorry, just 1 second. I think we're good.
We're good. You were consulting with a higher power or
I
something,
was,
but-
yes, sorry, thank you. Number 13 is motion to adjourn.
Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.